floor, like large flat surfaces, smooth angles, walls. They're really large. I mean, they're megalithic. So he's describing then like these other buildings now. And I guess it started being destroyed by whatever was happening on this planet, this huge catastrophe that was happening, cataclysmic event that was taking place. So he's told
just to pause you for 1 second about Mars. If you look at Mars, and I saw a MUFON presentation once that blew my mind. Yes, I went to a MUFON lecture. I'm fucking proud of it. I love MUFON. And they talked about how Mars looks like, if you look at it, it looks like something exploded and scarred half of it. It looks like another planet or something was next to it. Anyways, go on.
Okay.
Yeah, that's also in the electric universe theory as well. They have proof. They can show how, Venus ran into Mars and created this. Yeah, there's this huge catastrophe. Planet it stripped away its atmosphere.
Huh. Interesting. So then he's told to look around in this area and see if he can find any activity. So he says he sees perceptions of shadow-like. These shadows, basically, of very tall, thin people. And he says they were there, but they're not there anymore. But he sees just the shadows. That reminds me of, when nuclear blasts go off, and people have permanent shadows that remain on the ground from the blast.
Yep.
Have you ever seen that?
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting. So he's then told to go back to when these people were actually here now. So he describes them as very tall, thin people. They're wearing strange clothing. Doesn't really give any more description than that, tall and thin. But I guess that's all he can kind of perceive of these people related to himself. So he's told to stay in this time period, but move to a different location. So then he's given different coordinates in the same on the planet again. So now he says he's deep inside a cavern. Not a cavern, more like a canyon. I'm looking up the sides of a steep wall. They seem to go on forever, and there's like a structure. It's like the wall of a canyon has been carved. Again, I'm getting very large structures. No intricacies, huge sections of smooth stone. So then he starts describing inside these buildings, and he describes it's like this maze of passages and rooms. He says the structure is just immense, like crazy high ceilings. He keeps mentioning this, like he can't believe how big these things are. He even feels like his scale is off. Like he's like, this must be wrong. Like this is fucking insane. Like he's looking up into these huge ceilings. Then given another set of coordinates, so they're like same thing we talked about when it was on the moon. They seem to be edging and closer to something, or they're just trying to,
Wait, I have a question. We obviously don't know who's asking these questions, but they obviously had enough data to give him coordinates of things that they thought might have existed.
So they
where
must
did that
have,
information
exactly,
come from?
yeah. So they must have
That's interesting.
Mapped at least coordinates around the planet at some point, and they must have been. Maybe they can see enough to realize, oh, there's something there. Let's send someone there, remote viewing style, to kind of check it out.
Dude, there's plenty of photos that I've seen that show tubular systems, pyramids, and things that could clearly be buildings. They just got to go find those photos. They don't need any government access or anything. They could just be pinpointing off like common shit you can find out there on the internet. But
Josh,
bizarre photos of Mars.
Yeah, but I've never heard of some of this stuff.
No, not at all. But like, if they found like something they thought was a pyramid on Mars, they could be okay, you just throw the coordinate on that and see if it really is or a mountain, and then boom, all of a sudden it has inside.
You can like see that there's something there. So let's go check it out, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So he goes to a new place on the planet now, and he sees a radiating pattern of roads cut into the valleys of the landscape. Sunlight reflecting on the surface of these roads, and it's like white, bright white, just reflecting back up at him. And then he says he looks up at the sun, and he said the sun looks weird. He doesn't give any more description than that, but the sun looks weird. Like maybe it's closer or whatever.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah. So at this point, he's moved to several different locations, and he spots more, sort of evidence of basic civilization. Until he keeps coming back to these pyramids, and the handler notes on this document that, look, he seems to keep wanting to go back to these pyramids, so we'll just kind of let him go there and just see where he goes, because he obviously is interested in this, wants to keep going back. And actually reading through this, You get the distinct feeling that this remote viewer is under some sort of hypnosis as he's doing this, which is interesting. Like, I think that's probably a thing, but I don't know. Like, the remote viewing that I've learned about in the past couple of weeks when I've really been diving into it, it's just kind of you go into a meditative state. But this guy really seems like he's in a hypnotic state, because at the end, the handler tells him like to travel back to my voice and come back to this time, back into this room. Like, it's weird. Like, anyway,
maybe it's a version of astral traveling though, where they're controlling his leash though.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah,
because they're using him as kind of like a camera out in another time period, but they're holding the leash. Because you know how we talked about when we did a astral travel episode, and you have to tether yourself back home, otherwise you get lost out in space. It was almost like they were the tether.
Yeah. So he must be going into some really deep state, which is interesting. Wow. So anyway, he's back at these pyramids again, and he says, "Oh, these pyramids they seem like they're shelters. They're shelters from this cataclysm of storms that are raging across the planet." And he goes inside them, and he says there's different chambers, but they're almost stripped of any kind of furnishings or anything. It's like they're strictly functional, a place for sleeping. And he's like, that's not the right word. It's hibernation is the word. Hibernation of some form. I can't get real raw inputs. There's storms, savage storms, and they're sleeping through the storms. So he's describing this race of people now who the only way they could survive what was happening on the planet was to basically hibernate inside these pyramids. And you'd think, the pyramid structure is such a strong structure, it could withstand like crazy amounts of all sorts of cataclysmic shit happening, I would imagine. I mean, look at the ones here have survived a long, long time. So the right viewer is then asked to describe who are the ones sleeping through these storms. Again, he says these tall, thin, humanoid people, I can imagine, wearing tight-fitting, silky outfits. Pajamas, if you will.
Ooh.
You got to wear something comfortable when you're hibernating.
Are they Nordics?
I don't know. So he's then told to move closer. He says he's told to move closer to one of them and start talking to them, ask them about themselves, which is interesting because when like I said, he must be in some sort of trance-like state, where astral travel. I don't know, because I was getting impressions in my head, visualizations, but it was not clear enough to be able to like go up to someone and talk to them.
Yeah, like you're walking in a 3D video game world. Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's why it sounds more like astral travel.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he says they're ancient people, and they're dying. It's past their time or age. And he's asked to go on, keep telling me more about this. They're very philosophic about it. They're looking for a way to survive, and they just can't. They can't seem to get out of their way. They just can't seem to find their way out. So they're hanging on while they look or wait for something to return, or something coming with an answer. So then
doesn't that sound like Earthlings?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So he's asked, what are they waiting for? So he says, evidently there was a group or a party that was sent out to find a new place to live. It's like I'm getting all kinds of overwhelming input on the corruption of their environment. It's failing very rapidly, and this some sort of like rescue party took off somewhere else to go find somewhere else to live, basically. They went a long way.
This is all tied to the cataclysm. Something happened to the planet. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So he's then asked what caused this environmental disaster to happen on this planet. So he gets this visual of a globe. He says, I get a globe. It's a globe that goes through a comet's tail, or it's through a river of something, but it's all very cosmic. It's like space pictures. So something, I guess, maybe the planet went through some sort of cosmic rays, or like he says, the tail end of some massive planet.
Well, that's the whole story with Electric Universe. The Electric Universe with physicist Wal Thornhill from Australia. he
Great place.
he is able to show how Venus spun out of orbit and graced the surface of Mars, like burned the side of Mars, and was like a comet on fire, like burning past Mars.
Oh, interesting.
It's really interesting that you say that. Now, on Earth, ancient humans watching the same thing saw that happening. And so it became the Eye of Horus, this idea that Venus was circling around the Eye of Horus, like almost as if the goddess Venus was in a fight with the goddess Ares, Mars.
Wow.
Huh.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
So it's the whole mythology and the understanding from the different point of view. But that's really fascinating because that's the exact same thing that, I mean, they show with scientific evidence how it happened, how many years ago.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah.
That's
Yeah, it's
really
crazy.
cool.
It lines up. So getting back to it. So he's asked to, he's told to ask this alien if he knows what he is, like the remote viewer. Like, so he's talking to this alien in this astral form, and he then asks the alien, "Do you know what I am?" And then he's asked to ask this being, this alien, if there's any way as humans can help him and his people. And I was like, what? Why would you ask them that? You're like, this is 1,000,000 years ago. What would be the point of this? But I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they have some different understanding of how time and space works.
So, hold on, this guy's dying millions of years ago, and the Earthling from 1984 is saying, "How can you help our people?"
Yeah.
God damn humans! Like seriously.
Guy's like drowning. You're like, hey, what can you do for me, bro?
Oh no, actually, it's the other way around. So they're asking if we can do anything to help them. Basically.
Okay, that makes
a lot more
sense.
sense.
Okay, I got it.
But yeah, that does seem very human to be like, "Can you give us up, please?" But yeah, that's odd, right? So why would the CIA guy instruct the remote viewer to ask this alien if there's anything we can do for them? Like what? How?
Unless
yeah, I mean, this goes into
Timelines?
this goes into such a crazy understanding of timelines and quantum entanglement, and maybe if they change something in another timeline, then it changes something about Earth. I don't know. I mean, but this gets into like a crazy rabbit hole of a conversation. But again, whoever this CIA guy is or whatever he's connected to definitely has understanding of it. They're just getting verification.
Right. Yeah, that's what I found with reading some of these. It's reading, between the lines. You see, like, oh, they know a lot of stuff here, apparently. Or they're just, like, going...
They're looking to confirm it, almost. It's
that's what I'm saying.
It's really interesting. Okay, so, this is what the alien tells him. So the alien, he says he gets the idea that this being thinks that the remote viewer is some kind of hallucination, which is interesting. And then when he talks about, like, if there's anything we can do to help, they said they know they just have to wait for the rescue party to return. So then the remote viewer is told then to, all right, let's go look at this rescue party. So he goes, he travels, astrally or whatever, he takes his bind there now, and he describes the shiny, smooth, metallic inner surface inside a ship. He describes it as like it's a boat-like shape. These rounded
Noah's
walls.
Ark.
Yeah. I mean, it's a similar idea, I guess, right? So he describes like rounded walls, shiny, smooth, metallic surface. And then he's asked, "Can you see where this rescue party went?" And this is where I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." So he says he sees a really volatile planet, volcanoes and steam bursting from the ground. But he describes this flourishing vegetation, like it's like life is happening on this planet. But there's different kinds of storms happening, and it's like it's almost just as dangerous. And I think he says in the document, he says it's very much like a out of the frying pan into the fire situation for this crew. So I don't know, maybe they didn't survive. Excuse me. But then I was like, oh, is he describing like a prehistoric Earth right now?
Yes, he's totally.
That's what he's describing. Like these guys traveled to Earth. So
did he say anything about the sky being kind of red?
No, he doesn't go into much detail at all as far as like colors and stuff. a couple of mentions here and there, but that's kind of all he had to say. It was like this really lush,